I'm doing a two-part series on how people can change their view of reality. The first part, with or without drugs or anything else, but just through the power of your own agency in your mind. The first was deciding on your identity, especially around being diagnosed with the disease. And now I want to get a little bit wonky. A famous medical journal called the Lancet published a strange paper. A fundamental change is needed for appraising placebo responses in psychiatry. And what they were pointing out was that in many studies of drugs and therapy, you conduct that study by having what's called a double-blind study, where neither the subject nor the person administering a drug, for example, knows whether it's really a drug or whether it's a fake drug called a placebo. And in a remarkable number of these situations, what actually occurs is the placebo does remarkably well, sometimes actually matching the impact of the drug itself. In medicine, in American thinking, we're incapable of looking at that and saying, I wonder what that placebo is doing. That is something that we cannot access in our thinking. The way that all of these results like this are interpreted is, I guess the study didn't really work and people guessed that they were getting the placebo. They can only analyze the failure of the medical treatment as being what's operative. What a strange, limiting view of reality that is. There's one very famous study that I'm aware of where Charles O'Brien, one of the leading disease theorists about mental illness, decided that naltrexone only worked with some people with mental health issues and with alcoholism issues because of a genetic type that they were. And so he divided the population up into two different genotypes. And then he administered the drug and the placebo to all. There's now 4 groups: drug, placebo, one type of genotype, and another type of genotype. The results were the same for all 4 groups. They were no more likely to drink excessively. They were no more likely to relapse. They were no more likely to have any kind of drinking difficulties, no matter which of the 4 groups they were. And what did O'Brien decipher as a result of all of this? We must have looked at the wrong genotypes. We've got to divide up this population in terms of different types of genes variants. And we missed that. But there's a whole other remarkable way of thinking that never even occurred to him, which is maybe the very expectation and belief that the person was going to drink less and control their drinking more as a result of taking something is the actual variable and reality-oriented factor. And what we really need to be thinking about is, well, how do we induce people to believe that they can drink less? There's one further finding in this study that makes that more imperative. All of the improvement took place in the reduced drinking, the less likelihood of relapse, after the first session. It wasn't like, they took the drug and they become less likely to drink heavily. They went to the first session. They presumably became convinced that what they were taking would allow them to be able to drink in a more controlled manner. And then they drank in a more controlled manner. what should we do with that reality? If that's the reality, it's illegal to say to people, I'm going to give you a drug, and then for you to know it's not a drug, and for you to then bet on the fact that the belief that it was a drug is going to allow them to behave in a certain way. But it is plausible and legal for you to say, I'm going to convince people that they have the power within themselves to reduce their drinking. I'm going to understand who they are, what their situation is, what is going to make them feel that something is more believable. And that is going to allow them to behave in the way that that person and the therapy both want to make happen. I want to cycle back to what it is we began talking about. How do you change your belief in a set reality that everybody around you accepts and that you accept? And we have a set reality that drugs and medical therapies are it, but that beliefs and expectations are not real. And you can imagine taking a drug like psilocybin and saying, oh, I see the whole world in a different way. Seeing it in this different way is going to enable me to relate to the world in a whole different way. Okay, we're not against psilocybin. We're not here to talk about or for or against LSD. But you can perform that process on your own without the impact of taking a drug. And medical society, American medicine and American therapy could do the same thing. And they and we would all be better off if we were able to recognize and deal with that reality.